Hello everyone, I'm Don Pratt, host of a show here on Rogers TV where we give you a perspective on police in your community. Welcome to Policing York Region. Today we're going to chat everything Crime Stoppers, and first we're just going to toss over to a good little video that they've put together for us. So let's head over to the video. Well, what a great video, and does that ever put it in perspective what the criminal's looking at versus the people that are seeing them, right? So we're sitting today with Sergeant Trevor Hanko and Leo Ralph. Trevor's the police coordinator, I believe, with York Regional Police, and Leo, you're the chair of Crime Stoppers. Correct. York Region. So welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Don.
So can you bring us into Crime Stoppers York Region? There's it's a big umbrella. It does a lot of different things. It's first, I guess we can talk about the relationship between York Regional Police and Crime Stoppers.
Crime Stoppers is a program that's external to the police.
Okay.
I am the police coordinator, but my function is to take in the tips and provide them to our investigators and liaise with the board, which Leo is the chair of. The board is an external entity outside the police department, and they do the administration and running of their program for fundraising and so on, which I think Leo will allude to a little later. And I'm more towards the investigative side of it and assisting with running their events and so on.
Right. So I get the relationship is you're actually a separate entity from York Regional Police.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. And so what is your board made up of?
Basically, well, we're volunteers, and everything's about fundraising.
Right.
We have to go out and public awareness.
So this is all a volunteer?
Yes.
Based
Everyone. Everyone is, yeah. It's all about public awareness.
Yeah.
And getting it out.
So you're out in the community?
That's correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that you do out in the community then?
Well, for fundraising, we have our golf tournament. Right. We have our murder mystery. Yeah. We have our plaque program.
Maybe we should show folks
we can do that.
Plaque that we're doing, and we can talk a little bit about this.
Yes, that's a very important part.
So, tell me, how do people come about getting a plaque in the business?
Well, that's the biggest challenge we have is, you can imagine that looks good in anybody's foyer. So the challenge for us is getting it out there. Like, how do we reach out to the businesses? In the old days, you could go up and knock on the door. You can't do that anymore. So the challenge is, how do we get that out there? How do we get people to know about it? Okay. And that's all this is about, is a public awareness. If we can, if all the businesses could see this plaque, they would want one. Right. So that's our
it's a great looking plaque, and it shows that you're supporting a very worthwhile cause.
Yes, for only $100 a year, and
that's it.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, and you get that beautiful plaque, and you have a commitment for 5 years that you live up to, and hopefully, and then each year we send you out at the start of the year an invoice, and you send us in the $100, and then we send you out the date for it.
Oh, fantastic.
The yearly date.
So, Trevor, tell me maybe. We're trying to learn how does Crime Stoppers work?
Okay. So as I said, it's an external program, and of course I'm the police coordinator, so there has to be a liaison between the board of directors of Crime Stoppers and into the police department. And why there's liaison is because although the board administers and runs the program, they have nothing to do with the tips that are received, except for at the end authorizing a reward for a successful tip. So maybe we should talk about how a reward is achieved by providing information. So the sole purpose behind Crime Stoppers, and I believe a guest you have later in this segment will talk about the history, so I don't want to get too much into that. But Crime Stoppers has been around for quite a while, and it's an avenue for people to report crime anonymously. And I really like to stress this. We always stress this. It is 100% anonymous. Okay. We don't know who the tipster is, and we really don't want to know who the tipster is. And we take great strides to make sure that occurs. Right. So people provide information to Crime Stoppers when they have some hesitancy to contact police directly.
Okay.
And that could be for, apathy, fear, whatever. So the information comes into my office by different processes. We have a computer program that people can go online and put a tip in. The tip is then sent to us through a computer program. And I might add that computer program, again, is completely anonymous. It will not record your IP address.
Okay.
Nothing gets recorded, and you can't break into that system.
Right.
It's been tested by numerous outlets in the United States. I believe the FBI's tested it.
Oh, wow.
And they can't get into it.
Wow.
And so that is anonymous.
So that's one method.
That's one method.
Of
The
reporting.
other is by texting. You can
Okay.
text a message, and you text it,
Okay.
and once that information is received, and by the way, if you go to our website, www.1-800-222-TIPS.com,
Okay.
it'll show you exactly how you can use the three methods of reporting.
Oh, fantastic.
Texting, and the last method is directly by phone.
Right.
If you call the number, which is 1-800-222-TIPS, that phone rings, and there is no call display. It is
Right.
not recorded. And if you start to even remotely identify yourself, we'll stop you. We don't want to know who you
You
are.
just simply don't want to know.
And then my job is to take that information, and then I go through that information and provide it to the respective unit that would be investigating that type of crime.
Right. Okay.
Once that crime is investigated, it's then reported back to me by the police investigators if it led to a successful arrest or conclusion.
Okay.
Once that occurs, and this is where the board liaising comes into play, the computer program shoots out an amount that's recommended by this, it's called TipSoft, recommends how much that award should be worth. And that depends on the severity of the crime,
All right.
how many charges.
So that's a decision that the board makes.
Well, the computer will shoot out the amount.
Okay.
I then present generically to the board once a month all the
I
successful
see.
conclusions.
Right.
And they, as a board, determine what the reward should be.
Okay.
Now, that's the last thing we can lead into the fundraising again.
Yes.
The police department provides no funding whatsoever for the rewards.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we got on the air. So, when we talked about, I didn't know it was two separate, totally separate units. I mean, when we
people
see
don't.
Crime Stoppers, we associate it with York Regional Police. So first of all, two totally separate entities. And you were saying that financially, there's no.
Besides
YRP doesn't
my
cover anything.
salary and the other officer who works
So
in the office. that's it.
Administrative only then?
Yes.
On YRP side?
Yes.
And Leo, we were talking about the fundraising. I've had the honor of being at a couple of the fantastic events.
They are.
The golf in June is an incredible day. Murder mystery, I think that's sometime October.
October, yeah.
Kind of time frame. And these are, we have some pictures up of the golf right now, actually. Jack Hurst presenting somebody a trophy for a game well played, right? And the murder mystery, it's a lot of fun. So for information on, here's a picture of the murder mystery, and somebody's been centered out in the guest table.
Right.
So for people that wanted to attend these kind of events, would they go onto your website? Is that what
Absolutely, they're advertised in advance.
They are. Okay, so on the what was the website for Crime Stoppers?
It's www.1-800-222-TIPS.com.
Right. Okay, so
the phone number.com.
Right, phone number.com. Can we talk a little bit about statistics then? I had a brief look at some of them ahead of the show, and there's some pretty staggering numbers.
Very good ones.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think we have a chart to put up on the screen of some of the stats.
If you look at some of these stats, they are very impressive over the time. 1986 was the formation of Crime Stoppers, and if you look at the stats over the years, there's been over 32,000 people have called or provided tips to the program. There's been 2,912 arrests, and this is up to the end of January of this year.
Right.
2,912 arrests that have been made that wouldn't have been made otherwise.
Yeah, that's pretty
Over
impressive.
3,000 cases cleared and over 7,700 charges laid. The one that I know the chief of police is very. He always, I guess, highlights this stat every time he mentions our stats anywhere, is the amount of drugs that have been seized is over 101 million.
Well, I even had to ask before, is that the right number?
Yeah.
$101 million?
$1 million worth of drugs have been taken off the streets of York Region, including 269 weapons seized. And that ranges from knives all the way up to shotguns or rifles. So the program on a policing side, absolutely works.
Absolutely, yeah, of course it does. Yeah, that's amazing to see. I can't get over the amount of drugs that's been removed, but you know, and not just that, but you know, how many people have called in since the inception of Crime Stoppers, right? And this can be all levels of crime.
Oh, it ranges from traffic act offenses that people are concerned of, up to criminal impaired driving,
right.
up to homicides.
Yeah, we're hearing an awful lot, and this is you know, from the tip side of thing, very prevalent in our region is impaired driving, and we're hearing a lot of tips coming through. Yeah. I understand.
I would like to stress when you mentioned that there, if somebody suspects impaired driving,
yes.
and it's happening. Unfortunately, some people call Crime Stoppers when that is occurring.
Yeah, that's
not the right thing to do. Call 911 if you see a driver. If you're wanting to report somebody you believe is a habitual drunk driver,
yes.
due to alcoholism or whatever,
yes.
sure, then we can get that information.
Right.
But if it's immediate, please call 911.
Not an emergency in progress.
Crime Stoppers is not an emergency in progress format. That's meant for our 911 operators.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Leo, for coming on the show. And Trevor's going to be back with me in just a minute. We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
York Regional Police wish to remind motorists to put their phones down and focus on driving while on the roads. Distracted driving continues to be one of the most common offenses that our officer sees every day on the road and continues to be a significant factor in many collisions. Driving requires your full attention, and the law also requires you to put down your phone, and if you must make a call, then you need to use the hands-free device. A reminder to motorists that distracted driving is not just limited to the mobile phones. It also refers to any form of distraction, including inattentive driving, such as adjusting the driver's entertainment device, GPS, stereos, eating, drinking, shaving, self-grooming, or tending to children in the back seat. Drivers must understand the true dangers that can occur on the road when they're not paying attention, regardless of what the distraction is. Please remember, phones down, eyes up, 2 hands on the wheel, and stay safe.
Thank you for that short message, and welcome back. We still have Trevor Hanko on here, and sitting with him is Dave Forrester, the Canadian president of Crime Stoppers. Dave, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Trevor, when we were talking some numbers before, you said it started in 1986?
1986 in York Region, but there's a history of Crime Stoppers prior to that time.
Maybe, Dave, you could speak to the history of Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, certainly. It all began in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It's come a long way.
It has. And we as Canadians like to take some claim to all of this great fortune, in that it was a Canadian that was working as a police detective for Albuquerque Police.
Interesting.
Sadly, an 18-year-old student was murdered while working at a gas bar after school.
Okay.
When all the leads ran dry and there was no further information, he came up with the concept of approaching some of his media friends.
Right.
Went to the TV show and said, would we like to do a reenactment? So he brought in media, he brought in the police to help with the reenactment, and then he offered a reward. And he said to everybody, look, you'll remain anonymous. We won't tell anybody who you are. We'll give you some money. And he actually got the TV station to offer up the reward, which was great.
No kidding.
And that night he manned the phones. The first call that came in was a hang-up. Mm-hmm. The second call was interesting because it was an individual that wanted to report a heinous rape that had occurred. And he'd been living with this information for over a year, had no one that he could tell about or talk to about it.
Right.
And he was able to provide that information, which then led to the arrest.
That was his opening.
It was, to 3 individuals that had committed that crime. Subsequent to those calls that evening, and there were a number of them, the 7th call was the one that he was looking for. And that was information that led to the eventual arrest of 2 individuals who had killed young Michael Carner. So.
Wow, that's quite the start off.
It was amazing. And then fast forward 1982, it
Yeah.
came into Canada.
Right.
Calgary was the first Crime
Okay.
Stopper program.
Right.
1983, we moved into Ontario and came to Hamilton.
Right.
And then, as you've heard Trevor speak, 1986, we were sort of part of the Toronto region originally, York and Toronto and Durham and Peel, and
Yeah.
then we branched out on our own. So,
And you've played a few different capacities within Crime Stoppers.
yeah, I started as a volunteer about 16 years ago,
You've been with it for a while.
quite a while, and was chair here in York, Ontario president, Canadian president, and I'm also the
Right.
Canadian representative to Crime Stoppers International. So
So this is a passion you've got.
it's a volunteer passion, it sure
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
It is. We were talking before about some of the avenues that the Crime Stoppers takes, and we were talking about some of the fundraising, the golf game, and the murder mystery, and another one is the student symposium. I don't think we had a chance to chat about that. Can you talk about the student symposium a bit?
Yeah, it's an initiative here in York that we have that we began, Trevor, around 8 years ago
Around
now.
that,
Yeah. and
Yep.
So what we do, we bring student representatives from all the different high schools across
Right.
the region, both public school or both the public secondary and Catholic.
So this is an invite that you send out to the schools.
Yeah, we have a committee of school representatives
Okay.
formed by typically principals, vice principals
Right.
that work with the Crime Stopper program. We developed initially a poster campaign, and we basically said to the
Yes.
students, tell us what Crime Stoppers means to you.
Right.
And each year those submissions have just become just better and better, if you will.
Yeah, we seen actually the finished products up on stage last year as they were being unveiled. They were some pretty great messaging, right?
Spectacular.
And this is all from students.
It
right?
is. It's their interpretation.
And it's still up on the Crime Stoppers webpage, the Crime Stoppers student webpage. We had the opportunity of going down there with Rogers and filming a couple of the speakers down there, and we got some tremendous feedback. So not only inside of that auditorium. Did it work? We got some great feedback on the outside as well.
And that's what I always find with the board. The board is attempting to do things not just to nurture the calls coming in,
Right.
but they provide information to the youth through the student symposium. One of the officers in my office goes out to schools 2 to 3 times a week and speaks
right.
and delivers the message of Crime Stoppers,
Right.
letting the children or the students know not only can they report it to the police, but they can also use Crime Stoppers as an outlet.
Correct.
And to anonymously report, especially in a school when you're worried about your peers doing something,
Right.
and so you've got to be very cognizant of that. So when we go back to the fundraising aspect, the school symposium, everything that Crime Stoppers does is outside again the administration of the police
Right.
office. Everything
Right.
else is by the fundraising that they do through their murder
Wow.
mysteries, golf, plaque program, whatever, and that helps fund all the successful rewards.
That's incredible.
And the one stat I didn't mention earlier, the board, since the inception, has approved almost $400,000 in rewards.
Oh, wow.
So you can see it's an expensive thing to run,
Yeah.
but there is a lot of support in the community. And especially by allowing us to come in the show today,
Sure.
it exposes that program to people that aren't quite aware.
Right.
As you say, a lot of people don't understand the board and the police side.
No,
of
it's
it.
an interesting dynamic, right?
And the success is Canada-wide, worldwide. The stats for Canada, I think we're at about 188,000 arrests right now and over $4 billion in recovered stolen property and drugs. So our Canadian numbers are spectacular as well.
You mentioned worldwide?
Worldwide, so Crime Stoppers is in about just over 30 countries around the world. We have 7 geographic regions.
All of this from one gentleman down in...
One gentleman 40 years ago just over 40 years ago that came up with
Just
this
had a
brilliant
good idea.
I had the pleasure
Right.
of, as did Leo and Trevor, the 3 of us were in Albuquerque last year for the 40th anniversary, and I spent considerable time with Greg McAleese, who was the Canadian
Wow.
detective. And what an inspiring story,
yeah.
and to see
That'd be a great honor.
well, he sees the fruits of his labor now too, which must be very rewarding for him.
Absolutely.
And the one statistic you didn't allude to, which I think is my favorite stat to say, is the stat of how many arrests are made per minute or second or something. What number? I forget what number that is.
Yeah, there's information from Crime Stoppers leads to an arrest every 7 minutes somewhere
That's
in the world.
incredible.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty remarkable program run
Yeah.
by a remarkable group of volunteers, working in conjunction, of course, with our police partners, our
Right.
enforcement partners, I should
Yeah.
say, and our media. Because we not only have relationships with the police, but we have relationships with other organizations that do investigative services,
Okay.
such as the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry here in Ontario,
Right.
the OSPCA, Ministry of Finance, illicit tobacco, the Ontario Racing Commission. These are just Ontario organizations.
Okay.
So we have a number of other relationships, if you will, with individual groups that target crime.
Yeah, well, an interesting one, you touched on it, that I read about last summer, I believe it was, poaching.
Right, yeah, we had the opportunity a couple of years back. It was brought to our attention about the plight of a number of turtle species here in Ontario, and I learned a lot myself, not knowing that we had 8 species and 7 of them were at risk.
Yes.
And turtles were being poached and sometimes sold for up to $5,000 for a turtle
That's
to
incredible.
collectors. So we developed a campaign working with the Ministry of Natural Resources Forestry and the Toronto Zoo, drawing awareness to this. This campaign was a province-wide campaign. It actually was recognized internationally, and we received an international award for it last year. I was back at the Toronto Zoo a couple weeks back to present them with their recognition, and the enthusiasm for us to continue down that path to look at further wildlife and environmental crime.
Yeah.
It's actually the 4th largest type of criminal activity in the world. It generates about $30 billion a year, and yet often goes unrecognized.
Yeah, of course.
So,
of course. Well, it's great that you're involved in that element as well, then, right? Another element I just wanted to touch on. A recent show that we did was on the use of fentanyl and the effects that it's having, both in our region, our province, across Canada. You had a press release recently about fentanyl. Do you want to just touch on that? I'm not sure who wants to talk to that.
yeah, it's becoming an epidemic,
Yes.
obviously, and now finally getting the attention that is needed, and recognizing that concern here in the York region.
Yes.
We have targeted any information that can be brought forward from the public that will offer a double rewards campaign for the next 3 months.
Right.
Again, trying just to bring awareness and attention is the purpose of Crime Stoppers in so many of these situations.
Of course.
Fentanyl use is not isolated to York region by any means. It's Canada-wide.
Yeah.
It's sadly worldwide.
Yes.
But it's something that if the public has information, we want it.
Yeah.
And please, by all means, send it to us.
Absolutely. And but there was touching on the reward for that information.
Yeah, as Dave just said, for the next 3 months, any information that comes in on fentanyl that leads to an arrest or a seizure of fentanyl will be double the reward value.
Double the reward. That's fantastic.
Yeah, just trying to promote like Dave said, the knowledge and the understanding of what this horrible drug that's out there.
Yeah.
And trying to get off the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. So one element of that we haven't really talked on is so as far as somebody and that video right at the very beginning kind of captures it for us that you remain anonymous where the bad guy doesn't. I think that's great. How do you publicize this? So you have your crime of the week.
We send out a crime of the week, and that's where investigators are trying to solve a crime, and they have information or good photographs of a suspect. And we'll put that out to the media, hoping that they'll run that, and then people will recognize and advise us.
So that was going to be my question: is who are you actually sending that out to? It's more the media then.
Well, we send that out to media and other partners. We have a mailing list of a couple of thousand people on it, and we get that information out. And in today's technology, pictures are getting better and better of suspects.
Yes, they most certainly are.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of calls in from those releases saying, this is the person in that picture, and then we provide that information to the detective, and they take it from there.
Right, and so those same partners. I mean, if somebody wanted to be on that mailing list, is that an option?
They can. They can contact me again on the website. If you go to our website, which I alluded is 1-800-222-TIPS.com. They go to that website. Information on how they can contact me is on there. So if somebody wants those releases, they can request them.
Right.
And usually they go to media, other partners, other police agencies, and so on, and get publicized.
Right. So
It's just one of many components that we have to create awareness. We utilize facilities such as buses or terminals, advertisements in public places, and newspaper, radio, TV, whatever media outlets are available to us to create that awareness.
They don't really need to get the mailing, because if they go to the website,
It's there.
it's on there. Crime of the Week is on there. They can click on it, and it's right there. And like I say, it's proving to be very valuable.
yeah, actually, we were out on Lake Simcoe last summer with the York Regional Police Marine Unit, and I seen Crime Stoppers out on the waterways as well. So again, we talk a lot about partnerships and relationships and that kind of things. Are there areas that we might see Crime Stoppers, Dave?
In the future? Well, again, I guess we have to keep up with the times.
Yes.
As social media evolves, so does Crime
Yes.
Stoppers and the need to.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to we take advantage of any opportunity we can to inform the public.
Yeah.
That Crime Stoppers is an option that is available
Right.
to them if they don't wish to call the police for whatever the reason, whether it's fear of reprisal.
Right.
There are elements sometimes where it's just Crime Stoppers is just better suited, and we
That's it.
welcome that information.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for being here. Thank you, everyone, for the information. And folks, that wraps up this episode of Policing York Region. For more information on the show, rogerstv.com. For more information on York Regional Police, yrp.ca. And, of course, 1222 tips. Been great having you. Look forward to seeing you again.